Okay, so I talked about taking these tubes out. This one popped out. The other ones are still in there. We're going to replace them because I have them. Just give them a little wiggle. They come out. Apparently these wear out. I'm not sure, but we got the parts. We're going to change them out. You can get them aftermarket, about $13 or $14 a piece. Again, when I first took it out, a little banged up on the way out, so we'll just put brand new ones in. One side is thinner than the other, so you want the smaller side to go in, and they just pop right in. And again, we still have the spark plugs in there, so it's not a big deal. Again, I repeat, you do not need to take out the spark plugs. You do need to get it lined up, though, before you push it in. There we go. That's one. Two. Just get it in there, just get a little push. The little rubber ends that just expand or whatever. Compress, I should say. And this one right here. Okay, and that should be in. We've cleaned up the entire edge. Okay, we've taken off all the RTV blue, wiped it down with a rag. Guess I got a drop of oil there. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to break away for a minute. I'm going to put RTV blue on, and I'm also going to put the white silicone, like we said, on the half moons in the back of the. So hang on one. All right, so the gasket's in place, and I put RTV blue all around. I don't have the white silicone that I thought I had from BMW, but again, they stress on these half moons here where the camshafts go. You want to make sure that you're getting it in the corners because that's where it goes. What typically happens with these gaskets over time, the heat, the cold, the expansion, they get very brittle. And what happens is they break. And when they break, they get cracked, and that's when you start getting leaks. Particularly, you get leaks in these corners, and that's why we make sure we gum them up really good. The bushings have been replaced, and like I said, back there in the engine, you can see we have the new tubes. Now, I'm going to film this the whole time because I'm tired of these videos that show you, hey, let me break away, and then they come back and the cover's in place or whatever. So this is real. This is how we do it. And like I said, patience is the biggest piece that you have to pay attention to. So we're going to go down on an angle. And it's unfortunate because we'll make a mess here with this RTV blue all over the place. But I am so paranoid this time. And again, you want to make sure you get past that sensor in the back. And I know you're not going to see as much this time this way, as I get RTV blue all over my shirt. That's okay. It's a small price to pay. I need to get past that sensor, and I don't want to. So how about I go low? See that sensor there in the back is the problem. I like to keep my finger on it so I can see where I am as far as clearance. Patience, my friends. And if we got to do this 6 times, we'll do it 6. And man, am I making a mess. Here we go. We slid right behind it. So now I can pivot it. Just sit it down in there. There we go. This time we're going to pay careful attention to make sure that the wire harness doesn't get pinched underneath it. So you got to find this sensor in the back. Make sure she pops through the hole there. I don't know if you can see it. There she is, right there. She's coming through. All right, we're going to set this down. All right, now you see we're not lined up because I can get my whole finger in there. This is where that solenoid mode, that servo motor goes. So again, we have brand new spark plug tubes in there, so they're going to be a little bit much to get in there. So hang on one second. Take my gloves off a little bit. Again, just because I do something doesn't mean I'm telling you beat your engine up with a hammer. You just want to seat this a little bit with a rubber mallet. Just kind of help it along. You see, we got a little bit of play yet. Hold on one second. Now, when you do this, be careful. I am not a big advocate of this, but I need to get this seated. Baby taps. Baby taps. Rubber, wood. Soft wood because it's actually breaking. Whoop. Fell on the bottom, that's good. So, are we seated? I'm not sure. It feels like we're not down all the way yet. We want to account for all our wires on the harness this time, unlike I did last time. So we have clearance. Now, getting these nuts started is going to be a challenge because think about it, you have brand new rubber bushings that need to be collapsed. So what we're going to do is try seat these things down with my socket. So again, we're looking, you want to start in the middle on the bottom and work your way out in both directions. Okay, so you're going to have to put a little pressure on this. Sweet, I got that one catch. First shot. Okay, I'm going to try this one. Remember, we're going to have to torque these in, but for now, let's just get them seated. What do they say? Righty, tighty, lefty, loosey. Dummy. You were right. Oh boy. That's a beautiful thing. She's sitting right down. We didn't have that last time. Wonder why. Must have been that wire harness in the way. Oh, this is going in beautiful. I'm feeling kind of confident. Kind of, no less. Again, we stay in the middle. Just get these guys to bite. Okay. Now remember, we said we couldn't get that one on the bottom and the back with a ratchet. So we're going to come in with a flat ratchet, again, number 10. And unfortunately, you're not going to be able to torque this. If you are, you're a better man than I, or woman. But we're just going to do this, get it started, and when it comes time to torque it, we'll just have to guesstimate a little bit. Again, if you've been swinging a wrench your whole life, you'll have a pretty good idea of how tight to make it when you judge it by the other bolts. I don't want to say a number right now, but it's somewhere around 7 or 8 foot-pounds, I believe. We'll check the book in a little bit. Remember, everything is, in the Bentley book, is typically Newton meters. You do a quick conversion on your Google there, and it'll put you right around 7.5 or 8. Get back down here. Little technical difficulties there, dropping the socket. You don't have to take the panels off the bottom if you're just doing this job. If you can avoid that, that's great. If you do drop something, again, we had that handy dandy magnet I talked about earlier. But you might have to take your panels off if you're doing a more extensive job, especially if we're talking about the oil thermostat, which is way down under where my hand is, underneath the head by the exhaust manifold. And that's 3 bolts, but you basically have to take the alternator out and a bunch of stuff, go through the wheel well. I didn't film that when I did that job last week. Sorry. If you need, I have some pictures if that'll help you, but just send me an email and I can talk you through that a little bit. It's a $60 part because you can't buy just the O-ring. But that's a big source of an oil leak as well we talked about. And all that is a thermostat that bolts on the side of the manifold where the oil comes out of the engine before it goes into the intercooler or the radiator in the front. Alright, so I basically ran everything down. I torqued it. Yes, I'm going to prove it. I did torque them. You got to go all the way around. Remember the one in the back. The one in the corner you're going to have trouble getting to with a torque wrench. I used, again, I used a flat ratchet. And again, if you've been swinging a wrench for a couple of years, you got a pretty good idea what it should feel like. It ain't going to be perfect. Should be 7.5 to 8 foot-pounds for these bolts all around. So now we're going to jump into it. We verified. We got a good fit all the way around. She's solid. No wire harnesses this time are pinned. Whoops. And again, now we're going to start putting things back together. You want to make sure that you got your gaskets and your O-rings in place. They're not in the cover, so that means that they're going to be on the sensors themselves. So why don't we start putting these sensors back together? Again, there's 2 different lengths. You want to make sure that you put the right ones in the right spot. It shouldn't be too confusing because there are only certain lengths. I like to start at the bottom because everything's out of my way. Again, verifying we have the green O-ring. We go to the lowest hole. We set it down in there. And when we put it down, you need 2 hands to basically seat it. A little rotation, a little firm. Got to get that O-ring back in place. Make the effort to make sure it seats in there and then spin it around where the screw hole goes. I'll tell you what, we're going to break away from this because this is going to get real boring. But I'm going to put the 2 sensors in, the plate that goes on top, and then we'll button that all up and we'll come back in a little bit. Okay, so we're at the back of the engine here. Just want to give you a show. It's so that one sensor is the one that's right here that we got to be really careful of. Here's where the other sensor goes. That's a single bolt, and the other one's already down here. I've already connected it. I don't know if you can see back there, but all we're going to do is take this other one, just like this. Make sure it's not wrapped around. Seat that guy in there. Twist them around. Be nice and snug. Now it's important to get that tight because again, this engine's under pressure. You want to make sure that you don't have air being sucked in because that's going to throw us off and suck air into the cylinders, and suck the oil into the cylinders like we said. So again, now you got to find the hole for the screw. You might have to rotate it around a little bit and find it. Pro tip, didn't know this one because this is a new cover. It has the blanks where the screws go in, but because they're coarse threads like that, as you can see, you have to kind of run your own thread a little bit. Yeah, this came loose. Okay, I'll check back in a little. Okay, so we're back. Just want to make sure we're snug. So we got the lower sensor, the upper sensor. This is the main encoder. So now we got the 2 bolts we put in there. We put this on. This is a 1/4 turn. Make sure she gets in there and clicks, which it didn't do just now. There we go. We're in. There we go. See, it clicks. So now you're good. If you start getting crazy motor faults, you know, typically on this side, on this bank, check your connections. Make sure that these two are seated good back here. You get them in nice and tight. Make sure that the pins are actually seated in there and that thing is clicked in there. I've seen a couple other guys online where they said that they didn't get that quite right. Backing out now, we can see. So we got the back end put back together. Before we start putting all these hoses and everything, and let's get our ignition coils in and get them buttoned up. The next thing you want to do is bring our wire harness back in. So again, you want to put this in before you put your coils back in. Drop that back in there. So she just lays on the side of the cover, and I don't know if you can see. Can you zoom in? See these clips here? These clips are what's going to hold the harness in place. There's clips on top and bottom. What I like to do, seat that baby right in place, all right, on the bottom, and then just push to get the top to click in. She's in already, okay. So that's solid, snug as a bug in a rug. We take this, remember, this is number 8, the one in the back we talked about, a little tight back there. So we're going to pop this off. Again, she's just a little twist. She comes right off. That goes there. All right. We're going to get down there, dance it on in there. Hang on a second. I've got to find a hole. It could be an issue, you know what I mean? Oh my. There we go. As Bill Murray would say, it's in the hole. All right, let's sit down in there. So now we're in the hole, we're loose. We're gonna put this sucker back on. Again, line up those two holes. It's just like a hinge. And get that to snap on there. Again, making sure not to drop it behind the engine. I can't see what I'm doing here. Come on. There we go. We're on? Okay, see? We're on. So now you want to seat that in there. Before you seat it, take your plug. It's a triangle. Make sure you put the top in. See how that's automatically coming down? So that tab on top locks her in. So now your harness is in there. Now, a little bit of chutzpah there. Push her down onto the spark plug. Want to make sure she's solid. Okay? Okay. Again, you had all your coils lined up so they go back where they came from. You try not to switch the order. Technically doesn't make a difference, but I'm a little anal. Again, you put your harness in until it comes down, clicks it on, and then seat her in there. You guys get the idea. This goes really quick, actually. I love it when a plan comes together. All right. Number 5. In case you haven't noticed, 5, 6, 7, 8. The other side is 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, just clicked right in there. So now you have all your ignition coils in, your harness is clicked in. All right, we're happy. Now we can start putting some of this other garbage back together. Remember that ugly heater hose we had before? Leaking all over the place? We're going to put that back. I don't advise doing what I just did by tie wrapping it to your windshield wiper, but that's how we roll around here. Again, you want to move your hose. You want to make sure you're putting this back in the right order. Not that you have things sitting in the wrong place. So as we get down lower, we're going to go down here. Remember, we had that hose there in the bottom. That's going to be a challenge for us. So we have the wire, okay, which is here. And then we have that hose, which fell down here. And I got my socket in there. And you already see the antifreeze is coming up there. So what we want to do, make sure that your hose clamp is still there. Which, uh-oh, where's my hose clamp? Where's the hose clamp? Houston, we might have a problem here. Sneak back down here. Got a hose clamp in position. And this is where the mess starts. Right. Yeah. Be nice if I could see what the hell I'm doing. Don't know if you can see, I'm trying to get that heater hose back on. And I hear everything dripping out, but I think we're okay. Yeah, we're on. Okay. Alright, we're good. Notice I've taken the gloves off because I gotta feel what I'm doing. I'm tired of these slippery things. Okay, so we just fought like hell to get the lower hose clamp on that. Don't forget, put this back in. This goes on that hose, those heater hoses right there. Make sure you get that in, she clicks. All right, so now the heater hoses are in there, and they're in there. So remember, we put these coils in. We got to put those clamps on the top. When you look at these clamps have, and it literally says front on it. All right, they're a little offset, so when you put them in, make sure it faces the right way. So it goes right here, and that's what holds your coils in. All right, I'm gonna button those down. I'll be right back. Okay, so we just finished putting these brackets on for the ignition coils. Now we come back, we can put our fuel line on. Again, she just pops on, push it, click. It's a beautiful thing. And you want to put the keeper in there, the keeper in there, the keeper in there, the keeper in there. Where the hell's the keeper? Cut! Okay, we found the keeper. Just pops right in there. This way that doesn't back out if somebody pushes it. Not that anybody's going to be in here. So now let's get our ground wires. Those are very important. We got gasoline and electric. That's not a good mix. So let's get this out of here. So I like to put the two from the coils. I like to put them against the screw first. On the one in the back, you're going to have the extra one from the rail, the fuel rail. So put them together. Again, we're going to zap those in there, just like we took it out. Same thing, only backwards. All right, you get the gist. There you go. German car, good and tight. You gotta take the other one. So now after this, we're gonna focus on getting the servo motor back in. We have a new gasket this time, a new bushing. So again, we got our dot. She's gonna get in there and just spin around. This you gotta fight to get in a little bit. Instead of gonna push that back in. She's not really in there all the way. We'll have to draw it in. You might have to rotate a little bit to find a screw hole. And again, wiggle, tickle, you know what it is. All right, we'll check back in a little bit. Okay, so I got this button down. These got to get torqued down. The little guys. So remember how I said that this has to go and get screwed in, because remember this is holding pressure back and it's spring loaded. So make sure you put your O-ring in. All right, sit her in there nice and sweet. Happy, happy. And again, I'm showing you this part because she goes in. All right. You want to start to engage those teeth, and now you're going to spin her around. Now you'll notice I got 2 marks on there. One says D for drive. The other side was P for passenger. Go figure. But I also got my dot, and make sure we have our dots lined up. Notice as I spin this in, as she engages on the gear down below, it's coming down lower and lower. So now I'm flat. Now I'm starting to get a little tension on it because it's actually probably picking up the shaft as it comes off the lifters with the springs there. So you want to get it just about flush, dot, dot, dot. We're happy. Again, we're going to put our 4 screws in. We're going to put the magnet in the back like we did last time in case we drop it. We'll check right back. All right, just buttoning it up. Again, I didn't want to bore you with screwing these things in. Put your wire harness in, nice. So we have our heater hoses. We have everything on this end all buttoned up. Let's throw these in. These wire harnesses go into clips as such. Fancy here. We have new clips here. They're actually tight as opposed to the old ones. Okay, we have the same thing on the bottom. We ensure that it didn't get caught. Our little sandwiched wire there from the last misrepair. Remember, we had this was the rubber that goes on that little bracket right there. I don't know if you can see it. Just push that on like that. Happy. Okay, so we have our gas line, all our sensors. We forgot our battery lead. So again, we pull this out. This is basically a sleeve. Terminal goes in there. Can't find the hole. Story of my life. There we go. We put the bolt in. You come from the side probably. See it a little better. There you go. Again, that's pretty straightforward. What did we say that was? 30 star. Now you just kind of look around the engine and see what other parts you got to put back. Quite straightforward. I think we're looking pretty sweet now. We have the cover basically buttoned up. Now, 2 things to remember. One, we had an open hose there, and we lost a bunch of coolant. So make sure you go back and revisit your coolant levels. And yeah, we're low. And we're also going to want to check the oil in a minute. So I'm going to check those, and I'll be right back. Okay, so we're all the way in the back of the truck, and in case you closed the door, I don't know if you realize, but you got to pull this guy out, and then you can manually open your back door so you can get to your battery compartment. You might not realize that if you never had your door closed with the battery disconnected. So a little pro tip there. Alright, we just fired it up. You want to throw this on because of the sensor on top. You don't want to start throwing codes. We got a little bit of oil that might have been residual. That's what we see smoking off of the exhaust. So we're going to let this thing get nice and warm and see what we got. Okay? So I'll check back in a couple of seconds here. So we just got done buttoning it up. We ran it, burned off all that residual oil. She stopped smoking. That's a good thing. So I just put all the covers back on, all the intake, the filters. Don't forget your plug there. Again, we were addressing the fact that you had a valve cover. Make sure she's seated, she's torqued in right. No wire harness pinched in there like somebody did last week. Oops. If you're going this far, you want to make sure that maybe possibly you want to do the front chain covers as well because they leak. Keynote, you want to make sure that you're putting the silicone or the RTV blue or whatever on the back on the half moons where the camshafts are, and those corners is susceptible to leak. So with that said, we're going to put the final cover on. We're going to button this one up for the day. Appreciate it. This is our first video here. from Sully's garage or Sully's shop. I'm not sure what we're going to call this, but thanks, and look for some more videos in the future.